I had spent 2 years of my life working on, and the company that I was working for at the time, I had spent 4 years running around like a headless chicken, travelling all over the country, and had really been instrumental in setting that company up from scratch. And it became quite clear overnight that this might not be there anymore. And for me, that was a really important part of who I was. And I loved my job more than, some of the other things that were going on in my life. But what God really showed me during that time was that it is him that gives and takes away. And that song, Blessed Be the Name of the Lord, was really important in the early stages of God really starting to do quite a deep work in my life about my work and the way I saw it. And it wasn't that I was in the wrong place, because God had given me the strength to do what I was doing on a daily basis. It's just at that point in time, in November of last year, he was saying, right, it's on to the next stage. And what I did was basically did nothing between November and December of last year, because we didn't want it to interrupt Christmas and what was going on in the family. But come January 2008, and I can remember sitting there on the 1st of January, boys were at football, and I thought, right, I need to do something now. And the first thing that I did was I said, Lord, let your will be done in this situation. I don't know what it is that you need me to do. I don't know whether you want me to carry on working. Is there something else? But I said, Lord, let your will be done, and started applying for jobs in healthcare, which was my experience. I'm a marketing and comms person with some project management experience, and I probably thought in my own strength, oh, well, I'll just get a job in the NHS, that'll work out okay, doesn't matter too much about the money, we'll just see what happens. But what God was really saying to me at that time was, I want you to use this time as a time of rest. You are weary, you have been travelling around, you've been running around like a headless chicken, you've been working all hours, you've been serving in church, doing all of these things. But he wanted me to come to rest, which is great, because between January and March, because the company was winding down, I didn't have to do any work, and I stopped travelling up to Birmingham, and it was just great to have that time just to sit, to catch up with friends, to go to King's Tots, to do daytime unique, to do all of these things that previously I hadn't had the opportunity to do, because I was doing my 4-hour travelling a day, turning up to home group and sitting eating chicken and chips in a box before going in, because that was what life was like. Although it worked, looking back on it now, it was very chaotic. And God knew that. But what God also knew was that he could have quite easily whispered into my ear, Nikki, it's time to move on, it's time to find a new job. But being open and honest, I'm not sure whether I would have heard. I'd have probably just carried on. It took him closing the company down to shift me to where he wanted me to be. And also another important thing that I did, instead of just saying, Lord, your will be done, I also said, Lord, let your will be done, and if possible, could you do it by March the 3rd, which was the time where I started getting no more salary from my previous employer. So I did put a little bit of a marker in there. But I think I used that marker as the thing that said, right, God, if you don't want me to work, then just let me know, so then we can just prepare. And I did. I laid it all down, my materialism, my love of work, just those things, I laid them all down. And in the midst of all this and applying for jobs in healthcare, I just applied for a job, which I liked the look of. I had the experience, and away I went. I just sent it off and saw what, just left it at that. And I got an interview for that job and was offered it the same day. And I can remember Phil came round for dinner that night, and I'd accepted the position. And I said, oh, it wasn't much of a battle, was it? And Phil just graciously said, that's because you laid it all down. You just gave it to God. And it's just been amazing how he's worked. So, And also at that point, I did get invited to go for an interview for a really good project management job in healthcare that would probably, if I'd have gone for the interview for that and had got that job, would have had me running ragged. But the job that I've got, it has just brought such rest into our lives. I'm working normal hours. I'm not travelling. It takes 20 minutes to get into work as opposed to an hour and a half, which is, it's just, I feel just completely different in my body, which is amazing. And the work is actually the same kind of work as what I was doing previously. In some respects, the responsibility I've got is more, but God knows that I can handle that. And just looking back on the whole situation, really, right from November to now, it's really been one of just seeing how God is moving myself and Dave, my husband, on into new things. Because back in November, we became home group leaders. And I don't think, I probably could have done with God's supernatural help, managed to cover it all. But I really need to be here in Bristol, and God made that happen. So that's my testimony. And just going back to a song, it's one of John Pike's songs, In Majesty. It really is those words, it's Christ in me who carries on. It is nothing that I can do in my strength, but it is Christ living in me which provides me with the rest that I've got. As I've been seeking God on this whole area of rest and chaos and the world around us, I read this book, 5 Big Ideas by Mal Fletcher, and it's well worth a read, even though I'm not sure I understand half of it myself. For those of you that know the writing of Mal Fletcher, he's a renowned social commentator in the Christian world. He's got the brain the size of a planet, really. But what I've understood is that he really gets it across to us, and this is again for the church here, that it's really important that we are aware of the times in which we live and why the world is the way it is. I think sometimes as Christians we can shut ourselves off, or we can, ignore what's going on around us. But the Bible does tell us, you know how to interpret the weather, but you don't know how to interpret the times. And this book's been really helpful in helping me to just understand why the world is the way it is. And what the book does, it identifies these 5 areas that Mal believes contribute to why the world is the way it is. And I'm just going to look at 2 of those. And what he does is, it's brilliant. He talks about the area, but then he looks at it from a kingdom perspective, and it's just great. So the first one, there's some big words now, and I can just about say them. Technological pragmatism. Anyone heard of that? Basically, in simple terms, that means if something works, it must be good. And we're looking at that whole idea of technology. We've all got PDAs, sat-nav, Wii's, Nintendo this, and it's iPods, I this, I that and the other. And I am going to mock my husband now. He wanted the first iCaravan. That's her. And that's the power of things like Apple in this world. In terms of lifestyle, technology in our world has become a lifestyle thing. It's a fact of life. We accept it without question. Because it works, it must be good. But how far do we take this? Human cloning? Designer babies? If it can be done, it should be done. But what are the consequences of going this far down the line with technology? A famous writer, I think it was a Russian writer, Solzhenitsyn, said, all these achievements, that is technology, do not redeem the 20th century's moral poverty. And I just would suggest to you today that it is only God that is ultimately good. And when we construct our lives based on anything else than his goodness, we will find danger. Our morality needs to be based on not whether something works or is convenient, but whether it lines up with the will of God that we see in Jesus. And that is the primary reason that we are here on this earth, is to have relationship with Jesus. And without this, there can only be chaos. And the second one is moral relativism, another ism. And that basically means freedom means doing as I please. And I'm just so aware that in this world